back to a brand new video of the Target Individual Program, Target Individual Experience. Look. We'll walk by and she, female, showing me her wedding ring, her engagement ring, I should say. Yeah, they always do these sort of subliminal messages. Like I give a shit, like I care. Right? Like, you know what I'm saying? They've done this to so many TIs before. They've done this to me before with my eldest, Bryce's mom. Using my emotions to psychologically manipulate me when it comes to. Here's the thing though, it doesn't work with the females. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't make me jealous of the females. The only how they were able to manipulate me is through my son. Right? And they had to go to the extreme. Okay? They had to manipulate her to send my son out of the country for an entire month without telling me and letting me know anything. And then forge the letter in my name and sign it in my name. Right? This is, like I said, you as a black man, particularly young black man at the time, my brothers, let me tell you, we as black people, we have so much trauma that, you have to be very careful when dealing with these women. All right? Particularly my brothers, you have to be very careful when dealing with these women. Right? These women will do things to end your life, to take your life. They will use the predator law enforcement officers and the predator law enforcement as a whole to destroy your life. Right? They will use other black men to destroy your life. They will manipulate you to destroy your life. You ever watch those interviews that when they ask women what would they say to their ex-boyfriends, and all of them speak disparagingly. All of them. And when they asked the men, what would they say to their ex-girlfriend, the men had very pleasant things to say. Right? Even if, just to see how they were doing, I should say. So even if they come out of a toxic relationship with a woman, they will still, particularly for black men, they will still, speak about them in some favorable term, while they don't speak to us about us in a favorable term. Right? So I want you to understand that this is how the gender wars are created within the minds of women and men. But like I said, my brothers, we have learned. Right? We understand, because we know they're going to hold us accountable. Look, every once in a while they send these young dudes with, he's not young, he's an older dude. But look at that shit, pants hanging below his ass. Like, come on, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. Because they want to see if I'm going to say anything. Man, listen. At this point, I know a lot of things that they do is because they want me to say something, or they want me to, enact with, or they showing me that, this is the type of manipulation we've done to black men, that have them, young black men, that have them engage in it. And it's not just young black men. Let me rephrase that. To black men who wear their pants like that. That's what you see all over TV. Right? That's what you see when you particularly when it comes to like, black music awards, like the BET Awards. You see grown-ass black men wearing their pants like that. Like, bro, come on. You're in your 50s. Right? You got to have some level of growth. But I understand, listen, they're not like everybody else, right? They have money, these rappers, and these other groups of people black people who are, attend the BET Awards. They, you know what I'm saying? It's like, come on. But we have a way of And that's the thing about us black people, right? It's a positive and a negative at the same time, right? Uh-oh. 283286. All right, so you know, they'll create negative culture within the black community, within the black man and woman's mind, black children's mind. You know, and we'll try to make it. It'll become a trend, and then other groups starts to follow, right? You know what I'm saying? And we influence other groups of people when it comes to fashion, music. You know, but have you noticed that within the past few years, you see less and less white children, white teenagers wearing their pants like that? You know, when Justin Bieber was around, we started hanging out with the rappers. You know, the little white teenage boys thought it was cool the way their pants be lit, but did they see Justin Bieber doing it? Well, you don't see that shit no more. You don't even see Justin Bieber doing it no more, right? And that's the thing. They grew out of it, or they are checked by their elders, by their parents, so they grew out of it. But we stuck in it. We still keep the same mindset. So for our women, you know, they act as if as the older they get, the younger they get in their mind, because they compete with other young women. So they're, you know, want to dress like the younger woman. You know, it's like, you know, you see the overweight females, black females, walking down the street, you know, with tight clothes on, and you know, like come on, you look ridiculous. But guess what? It is the woman's job to correct it, but they're not doing it. They're not doing it. And so if they can get us to not correct each other, you know, except to do things to each other in the worst way, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? There's a reason why they say this generation of young black people are lost, are the most lost group of black children ever, young black people ever. But it also applies to young white children as well, young white men and young white women, right? But remember, whatever happens to white people negatively, it's been happening to black people, you know? So when you see these MAGA people crying and all these white liberal women crying about, you know, why black people are staying quiet, you know, how it's so hard for them now, you know, whereas, you know, groceries shouldn't be costing such and such and such. They're like, groceries should not be. Black people have to deal with that shit for decades in our community, right? He's a Sambo. Black people, we have to deal with that shit for like decades in our community. So imagine if they're feeling the suffering that they're going through in terms of the economics and in terms of grocery prices, what have you, right? And they're complaining about it. What are we doing? We're not complaining about it. We talk about it, but we're not on television complaining about it. We're not on social media complaining about it, right? Because what? In cognitive warfare, you get people to accept the things that you're going to do to them in a negative way and not have them complain. So when I talk about black people are conditioned to survive on less, it becomes a normal thing for us. So we don't complain about it because we don't, you know, our children, when they grow up, because they grew up on so much less than we grew up. Well, when I say less, I mean that, you know, back in the days, egg didn't cost $10. Even if the price of egg was to go up, it wasn't any more than like maybe $6 or $7. Now a dozen egg costs you like $10, $12, right? So when I say less, meaning that, you know, the things that you need, right, to survive, food and stuff like that, right? So now, you see, and I see it in my household all the time. I see it, you know, with these young children. You know, they train their children to grow up on less, right? So when you're not feeding a child, you know, throughout the day with proper nutrition, you leave your child, you go wherever you're going to go, and you're not even concerned about whether that child eats or not, right? Or you don't put food out to say, hey, you know, this is for such and such during the day, you know, from that back at a certain time, you know, he has food there, right? That sort of thinking is non-existent in the minds of a lot of of black mothers, right? Particularly, right, in the working class poor black household where where the woman is the head of household. Okay, and like I said, our children suffer, and we are okay with that because we've been taught that suffering brings us closer to Christ, right? And because Christ is our Savior, then it's okay, because in the Bible it tells you, it says, suffer the little children to come out to thee, which is, part of their prayer, right? So the children have to suffer in order for you to indoctrinate them so they can be led to Christ, right? That is the mindset. That is the sick mindset, that you are engaging in this sort of behavior to your children, right? That you are actually making your children suffer because of your religion, because you think by them suffering is going to lead them. It's abuse, plain and simple. It's abuse, but they don't see it as abuse, right? They don't see. Look. I always bring these females and shit to come up here. Look at this clown too. Bunch of clowns and sandals. Let me tell you. Bunch of clowns and sandals. But like I said, I love to expose them. That's what I do. I love it. It's a battle back and forth, and I enjoy it. I enjoy exposing them. I enjoy, making the world see them for who they really are. Right? So there ain't nothing they can do to prevent me or to stop me from doing what I'm doing, except to kill me. That's it. That's all. But my purpose is greater than theirs. And I don't need no God or no Allah or no anything like that. I can look and I see my people suffering, I'm going to speak up about it. You're not going to get me to accept my suffering and the suffering of my people, so you can continue to drag us down to the bottom, further and further. Right? You have people who steal our history, right? Hide it from us. Right? That's what they've done. Steal our history, hide it from us, and then they become the de facto in who is who and who is not who, which is ridiculous. And we accept it. We accept it. Because you know why? Because we don't want to hear, I don't know what the hell she did. There is a bell there, right? But they just got her here to just engage in the hair sickness and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? She's fine. But I expose it, I'll show it. Right? Anyhow, as I was saying. Right? So you're not going to get me to be silent, even when my people are foolish enough to go along with what's being done. Right? And even when they're telling me exactly what it is that you're going to do to my people. Okay, that's why I didn't accept the money. That's like, no. You can't bribe me. You can't try to use me as a tool to control me. Right? Or we'll give you your business. We'll support you in your business. Right? But the minute I start helping my people, you want to attack me. Every time I go to donate, my kids and I go to donate a computer to their classmates, you want to attack me to make me not engage in that type of behavior, right? Right? So come on. Like I said, anybody with a rational mind and a common sense mind will, know that something is wrong. And again, but that's the cognitive warfare. They have to shape your mind, each and every one of us, individually as well as a group. And this is something that we don't understand as black people. That they will take the time to manipulate and condition each and every one of us individually also, not just as a group. Right? Particularly to remove the leaders that they are afraid of. Right? The black leadership is non-existent because they have engaged in a level of warfare to remove black leaders, particularly when we're young. Right? It is a playbook run by the Anti-Defamation League, APAC, and all these other places. When you hear them talk about, and they do it on video out in the public, right? what? Then they say we have to get to the young black politicians and bring them and make them come to our cause, condition them to support our cause, right? These are what these Jewish lobbyists have been doing, right? Okay? They do everything for the Jewish state of Israel and then for the people in their communities.